Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ventura TV. I'm Sandra Siepak. On today's show, we are welcoming City of Ventura Chief of Police, Darin Schindler. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, Chief.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Very good. It's been quite a year since you were sworn in as Chief of Police here in Ventura. And we've also dealt with a lot of things going on, the global pandemic being the biggest. So it's been quite a challenging year. Tell us more about yourself, how long you've been in public service, and your new role as Chief of Police here.
Sure, thanks. So I was born and raised in Ventura County. I started my career with the city of Port Manimi, actually, as a reserve police officer in 1989. And in 1990, I was hired full-time. And I worked there until 1995, and I came to Ventura as a lateral police officer. And I've been here ever since. I worked up through the ranks, worked a bunch of the different assignments, patrol, traffic, our narcotics unit, major crimes. And last year in April, I was promoted to the chief rank. I had been the assistant chief for the last 5 years before that. Learned a lot about being the chief. Never thought that it would be that big of a jump, but it's been a huge jump from assistant chief to chief. This first year for me, I've learned a lot. But I credit the former chief, Ken Corney, for taking me under his wing and mentoring me the last several years. That helped a lot. And then I was sworn in on April 4th as the chief after a short process of interviews and applying for the position. And the pandemic, I started from day one with the pandemic, and it's just been a whirlwind ever since.
Very good. I understand you also felt the need to update the city strategic plan and to kind of further align it with the needs of the community here. So I'd like you to tell us more about that plan and why the residents need to know more about that.
Sure. So it's actually the police department's strategic plan.
Okay.
And we, at the police department, we typically redraft, redesign, come up with changes, amendments every couple of years, 2 to 3 years. Okay. As a new chief coming in, I had a lot of ideas, as you can imagine. The pandemic kind of set me back a little bit. When I started, rather than put some of the new ideas in motion, decided to slow down a bit and focus on the safety and health of not only the department, but the city and the people that live here as well. So we had a little bit more time to work on a strategic plan. And the strategic plan is basically a roadmap for the police department. It guides our mission and delivery of our services for the next 3 years. It has our priorities outlined in there. Things change. We saw that in the first year with the pandemic and some of the social unrest. So it's not, set in stone. Okay. But when we look at our priorities and we're trying to decide where to allocate our resources, we go to our plan and say, this is where we're going to put our resources first, and then we move from there. So we took input from the community. We took input from the employees, and we put together a plan. There was a few versions of it, a few drafts before we found out what we really wanted to do first and foremost. And then we put it in motion about 6 months to 8 months ago. Okay. Officially, we put it in motion with the start of the new fiscal year. And I'm happy to say that it's taken into a lot of things that happened last year as well. Right. Social unrest and stuff that we were hearing from the community about. We were able to implement some new things that we hadn't, they weren't on top of our list, but they kind of moved to the top based on what was happening across our country. Okay,
good. I also want to point out that this is also in English and Spanish for residents.
It is. It's on our website as well.
Okay.
We do have printed versions, and whenever I go to a community meeting, which hasn't been a lot this last year, okay. I bring copies with me, hand them out. With it online, we're getting a lot more people looking at it remotely. As you can imagine, people are home. They've been sending us input about, hey, I saw your plan online. Here's what I like. Here's what I think you guys could add to it. So it's been a really good discussion starter for our community as well.
Good. Trust is one of the most important things that the Ventura Police Department and the people you serve is there. That's very essential. Tell us about how you identify with some of the key issues facing the community and the trust that you need to build within the community.
Well, I think this last year, trust has been probably at the top of our minds with what's going on. in different jurisdictions across our nation. I think trust for us in the city of Ventura is about being transparent in what we do and why we do it.
Okay.
I think it's about working with the community, not looking at it as a us versus them. It's not adversarial. It's a collaborative effort between their police department and themselves. So we really stress community policing. We really stress problem solving with the communities, input with the communities. I'm huge on outreach. In the last couple of years, we've had a great resource with our outreach coordinator, Emily Graves. Before that, it was Ashley Bautista, who works for the county now. And we've done a lot in the last few years to bridge those gaps. But this last year has really showed us we can do better. So we've been focusing a lot on getting back out in the community. Obviously, that's been tough. But a couple of things we're going to do this year that are actually in our strategic plan. About 10 years ago, we got away from doing neighborhood watch meetings. Neighborhood watch meetings were typically done in people's living rooms. The neighbors would come and talk about the concerns in the neighborhood, and the beat officers that worked that area would sit there and have discussions. We kind of got away from that, and it was mostly resource driven. We went to an online version. And I think although that was great, it allowed more people to engage with us. I think we kind of lost that connection with our people, that were looking for that one-on-one, face-to-face discussion with their officers. So we're going to be doing that here now with the pandemic kind of winding down. I'm looking to do that about the end of summer.
Okay.
Anything that engages the community, I think, is going to build trust.
What are some of the key priorities for the larger programs that you want to get started in the next couple of years?
Sure. Thanks for that question. We have never had an Explorer program. We have a pretty strong cadet program. Cadets are typically 18 years older, young men and women who want to maybe have a career in law enforcement. They get paid minimum wage. They help us do some of the parking enforcement, help us with our vehicle maintenance, stuff like that. But we've never had an Explorer program. Explorers are typically 14 to 17 years old. They're still in school. And it's a way for us to get out there and start engaging with the youth a little bit earlier. So that's top of my list. One of the things I heard this last year, especially with certain segments of our community, is a little bit of that distrust factor that we talked about. A lot of that had to do with some of the immigration narrative that's going on right now in the United States. People are afraid to call the police because even if they're a victim, they're afraid to call. Right. So it's kind of a twofold effort for us. One, we're going to get out and start talking to the youth, let them see us as people, engaging with them after school, with after school programs, earn the trust of the children and their parents, let them see that we're here for them just as we are for anybody else. And then secondly, we're hoping that we'll get some people from the community that grew up in Ventura that want to be in law enforcement. They want to be police officers. They want to be dispatchers. And this is a way for us to start that recruitment process earlier and show them the value of serving their own community that they grew up in. So that's probably one of the top things on my list. Okay. One thing we've already done is I instituted district commanders. So a few years ago, the city went to voting districts. Okay. We have 7 in the city of Ventura. I have a commander or assistant chief assigned to each of those districts. And the idea behind that is for lack of a better word, they're the police chief of that district. So when there's a problem on that district, if a neighborhood council member calls, if it's a community member calls, the district commander could allocate resources. They can work with other city managers much more expeditiously than an officer out there handling calls for service. So the idea behind it is get things done quicker, not have to pass people around before problems are resolved. It might be something as simple as the lights on the street are out. We need to get the Edison out here to get them fixed. Well, the commander can call and talk to Edison or Public Works and get that taken care of much quicker than an officer that's on the beat. So we've done that. That's been very successful. And also give the council member someone to directly talk to when they have a concern from one of their constituents about the neighborhood problem or something like that. Okay. Lastly, if things go well, I'm hoping to kick this off at the end of summer as well, is I want to develop a police chiefs advisory board. And the idea behind that is we heard this last year, a lot more interest in oversight, but also involvement in how the police make the decisions and why they do the things they do. And I think this would be a great opportunity for us to bring in people from a cross section of the community, teach them about the police department, and also hear from them about the concerns from the neighborhoods, the businesses, et cetera, that they live in. And and have that collaborative effort like I talked about earlier.
Good. How have you shown the community that you're committed to increased transparency?
Oh boy, we've done a number of things that this last year are new to us. Immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is our website has grown. It's probably doubled in size, the police department's website.
That's good to hear.
We now publish a lot more information on our website.
Okay.
Very little of what we do today is secret. I mean, hardly anything, tactics are still a little bit held close, but there's nothing else that we won't share with our community. We provide annual and biannual statistics on our website now for things like use of force, complaints, community complaints, our response times to different types of calls for service, the training that all the officers go through. We update that monthly. We also publish, this is new to us this last 6 months, we publish demographic data now for not only our sworn officers, but how that compares with the demographics of the community, of the people in our city. We publish the demographics of the people we arrest, so people can see how that aligns with the demographics of the city. We also publish demographics of when we use force. That is something that 2 years ago we hadn't even dreamed of doing. We didn't really no one really asked for it. It wasn't something that we thought of, and now it's just standard procedure. We put that on there. We're proud to put that on there. Obviously, it does spur some questions and some comments, but we're happy to talk about that.
Sure.
One thing we talk about demographics is I've been working for the last 5 years to get more females interested in being police officers. And that's been a big push for us. And we don't represent our community with the female and the male as far as sworn police officers. So we're working on that really hard to expand that. And then lastly, I'll probably tell you, we had one critical incident this last year that I'll probably say was new to us. We don't have a lot of officer involved shootings. We had one last year, right in the middle of the social unrest. And within 7 days, we produced a video and we released the body cam video from that shooting in hopes of being completely transparent with our community and showing them what happened, why the shooting took place, and anything, answering any questions right up front. And I think that is going to continue. Hopefully we won't have to do that again. But knowing things the way it is, if it does, we're going to continue doing things like that to be transparent and open with the community.
I do want to ask, how can residents become more involved and informed?
Number of ways. So follow us on social media. We have a robust social media platform. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all three of those. We do have our own website, like I mentioned before. Click around the website. There's a lot of news on there about we put press releases on there, things that are happening. You can learn about our volunteer program. We have a pretty robust volunteer program. We're looking to hold an academy at the end of this year for volunteers. We have volunteers that work out in the field in a van. They handle some of the calls for us. They help us direct traffic at accident scenes. And then we have volunteers that work here in the station, and they help us in our records department, in our crime analysis department. They're a great help for us. We typically, if we didn't have them, they take the place of probably 5 officers a year, the amount of work they do. If you're interested in being a volunteer, somebody that's interested, please go to our website. We have a page dedicated to our volunteers. It typically is a 10-week academy, 1 night a week for about 3 hours for 10 weeks. And once you graduate, you become a volunteer. And we do the same thing with something called a community academy. You don't want to be a volunteer, but you want to learn about the same thing that the volunteers learn about what we do a little bit more. We have a volunteer academy as well. We're hoping to do that probably around the beginning of the year.
That's great.
Very similar.
Good to hear. I want to ask you real quick, what's the best part of your job?
Best part of my job. Hard to pick. I would say leading a great organization. I really love the employees. Sworn professional staff, part-time employees. I'm so proud of the work they do day in and day out. The culture here is very strong. It's worth noting, last year with the pandemic and the social unrest, the morale here at the police department remained very high. The frontline workers, they were here day in and day out, and the morale remained very high. And I think a lot of that has to do with the culture, the great people we hire, and and the fostering of kind of a family, a second family away from home.
That's great to hear. Very good. Could you give us the website real quick so we can put that up on the screen in case people want to get a little bit more information on the police department?
Sure. If you go to the city's website, there's a link on there, cityofventura.ca.gov.
Okay.
You can click on the different departments, and the police department's on there.
That's great. City of Ventura Police Chief Darin Schindler, thank you so much for joining us today on the program. We really appreciate your time and all the information that you shared today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the show. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.